In July, former Vice President Mike Pence was campaigning in Iowa, where questions quickly turned to Donald Trump and January 6th.
If it wasn't for your vote, we would not have Joe Biden in the White House.
Right. I know by God's grace I did exactly what the Constitution of the United States required of me that day. I kept my oath.
Mike Pence and Donald Trump were completely an odd couple that worked very well together.
You know, I love Mike Pence. I think he's great, don't we?
Then came, January 6th, and it all crumbled.
Much of Pence's testimony and contemporaneous notes are at the heart of the Justice Department's case against Donald Trump and his alleged crimes committed in a desperate bid to stay in power.
He was not only my president, he was my friend. That tragic day in January will always be a day of great sadness for me.
Here's what the latest indictment against Trump tells us about how that relationship unfolded after the 2020 election and what it could mean for the next one. Trump chose Pence as his running mate, largely to shore up more traditional Republican voters.
He pulled in a lot of people that were skeptical of Trump that felt more at ease having Mike Pence at his side. Pence certainly deserves some credit for Trump winning the presidency.
And during the administration, they found that they worked pretty well together.
A lot of people were sort of still kind of scratching their heads, how do these two guys get together? And Pence stood by Trump throughout, numerous controversies when Trump was president. They got along, and by all accounts, up until, leading up to, Trump losing the election.
Once Joe Biden was projected to win the election, the Justice Department says Trump began a campaign based on false claims to change as many of these states as possible, from Biden wins to Trump wins. Trump has denied wrongdoing and has accused prosecutors of pursuing him for political reasons.
If you say something about an election, they want to put you in jail for the rest of your life. It's a disgrace.
Here's what the indictment says happened. Once the efforts within the states failed, the focus turned to Pence, who, as vice president, was tasked with certifying the votes from the electors of the Electoral College, and therefore the election. On December 23rd, Trump's plan became for the vice president to announce that because of the ongoing disputes in the 7 states, there are no electors that can be deemed validly appointed, and he would gavel in Trump as re-elected. 2 days later, Trump brought it up to Pence in a phone call. But Pence pushed back, saying, I don't think that I have the authority to change the outcome. A few days later, when Trump brought it up again, Pence pushed back again, saying he thought it was improper. Trump told him, "You're too honest."
Pence is a very traditional Republican, a lot of adherence to constitutional values. That's just kind of in his DNA. I'm sure it was a very tough, thing for him to do. I mean, he was under just tremendous pressure, but I don't think it's that surprising that he took that stance, as hard as it might have been.
The indictment says Trump pressured Pence several more times, and Pence continued to say he couldn't overturn the election.
And I hope Mike Pence comes through for us, I have to tell you. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much.
In a final meeting on January 5th, Trump grew frustrated and told Pence that he would have to publicly criticize him, which made Pence's chief of staff concerned for his safety, and he alerted the Secret Service. That night, Trump continued the pressure, tweeting, "If Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency."
There was a lot of anticipation in how Pence would act.
On the morning of January 6th, the indictment alleges, an unnamed agent for Trump contacted a U.S. senator to ask him to hand-deliver documents to Pence. Prosecutors allege those documents were fraudulent certificates, signed by fraudulent electors in Michigan and Wisconsin. When a Pence staff member was contacted about the documents, the staffer rejected them. Later that morning, after a call with Pence, Trump delivered a speech where he called him out, claiming he could change the election outcome.
And I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election.
Before Pence went up there to do his duty, he released this statement laying out why he could not upset the certification of the election. And it set up this, profound moment of tension in which the vice president was going to go and defy the wishes of the president.
Before Trump finished his speech, the indictment says a crowd began to gather at the Capitol. Back at the White House, Trump tweeted that Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done. 1 minute after Trump's tweet, the Secret Service evacuated Pence to a secure location. The attack on the Capitol delayed the certification for approximately 6 hours. It wasn't until the early hours of January 7th that Pence announced the certified results of the 2020 election in favor of Biden.
The chair declares the joint session dissolved.
The political fallout for Pence was almost immediate. Not just the threat to him, physically, as we saw him get yanked out of the Capitol, but immediately saw Trump supporters turn on him.
Now the two are both running for president in 2024.
Pence definitely is got an odd line to walk because he's at once criticizing Trump.
Anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put them over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again.
But also, saying how proud he was to be at his side for so long.
I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration.
Trump is the clear frontrunner, where Pence is hovering around 5% in national polls.
Trump is so far ahead that he doesn't give too much notice to Pence, but when Pence speaks out, Trump is often will come back at him.
After Trump's indictment was announced, Pence criticized Trump's actions after the election.
Sadly, the president was surrounded by a group of crackpot lawyers that kept telling him what his itching ears wanted to hear.
Trump responded, "I feel badly for Mike Pence, who is attracting no crowds, enthusiasm, or loyalty. He didn't fight against election fraud."
He's going to get a lot of heat from voters who think that he cost Trump another term. For the time being, I think January 6th kind of blunted any kind of future political aspirations for Pence.
I said when I announced, President Trump was wrong about my authority that day, and he's still wrong. I believe it with all my heart.